Great. All right, so this is the homepage, which is still fairly basic, but it does show us some analytics. And one of the things that I'm kind of excited about going forward is we're expanding on this significantly. So we can actually use the data in here to give you a lot better, even self-service reporting capabilities. I know that's one of the things that we've heard has been kind of a pain point for AMS 360 users is the reporting can be problematic at times. So this is early, but it does show you some of the activity that's happening. So this is a test site of ours. So that's, excuse me, not real data, but this does show you what the system looks like. So what we've done is we've actually connected this to an Epic system and pulled in the book of business, and we're able to do that through the reporting capabilities. So it's very lightweight, non-intrusive. So if I go in here to the book of business, for example, you'll be able to see all the accounts in the system. And so, over time we can get fancier with this, show it on maps and add more searching capabilities, for example. But I'm going to come back to this. What I want to show you first is the agency settings. So this is the agency view of the product. So you saw the homepage, the book of business. This is where you actually set up the specific agency settings. And then over here you've got the ability to create new submissions. We've got chat capabilities over here, notifications, and then the user profile. But what I wanted to show you first is, so this is kind of like the agency profile, so the agent can go in here and edit this, and this is actually shown to underwriters and carriers as the submission goes on. You'll see some of that. But what I wanted to show you here, this is the carrier settings. So this is used to set up the appointed carriers. In this case, I've already appointed a bunch of them, and I can add more if I want to. But we can not only appoint carriers, but also wholesalers, for example, to get access to other markets, and you can start routing business to them. One of the interesting things that I wanted to show you, though, so if you look at this carrier scorecard here real quick, there's a couple different dimensions here. We've got price, which is how expensive is their coverage, how much value do they add. So I'm sure you see there's a lot of carriers have sensor kits, for example, or other value adds, risk management services. How fast do they get a quote out? How good is their coverage, their claims experience? We continue to kind of refine this over time, and this actually came from agent feedback. And then the final one that is kind of interesting here is the agency relationship. And the way that these kind of play out in the rest of this process is as the business comes in, and especially for volume business like small commercial, for example, that you may not want to touch that much, these scores are actually used to match the incoming business with a carrier. So right now we're just making recommendations based on this, but ultimately our goal is to expose this for you as a landing page, for example, where you can have small commercial business come in either through an affinity program or marketing efforts of your own, come to a landing page, put in their information, and then you can either kick it out to a producer or have it go straight through. So in that case, this would kind of dictate where that business goes. So the way this agency relationship score works is in the event of a tie, so you'll see where we kind of set the policyholders' priorities, and those match directly to this. But in the event of a tie, it uses this agency relationship score to determine what gets recommended or where the business goes. So that could be, contingency maximization, just which carriers have been performing well for you lately, any number of factors that kind of go into that.
I'm trying to ask. Vaughn. Yeah, this Jerry, this is where you and Vaughn would be completing. You'd be putting in the carriers that you're appointed with, and you and Vaughn would be rating them based on these metrics in your version of the Internet of Insurance.
At any point down the road, would this become more intuitive, whereby the more we're using these carriers and it's seeing, what the pricing is looking like and or is it always something that we're just going to rate ourselves?
So the next step with this feature is we actually want to give CSR's producers and policyholders the ability to set this. We don't see any scenario where you want to give the agency relationship control to that many people.
Correct. No, I understand that.
But ultimately, and I think this kind of goes to our philosophy, what happens when Amazon comes into this industry, which rumors are that they want to, and they could become the biggest agent in the world overnight. So our goal is to kind of get ahead of that customer experience. So things like reviews from CSRs, producers, and policyholders are some of the things that we're thinking about, and actually including that at the producer's discretion into the proposal itself. So we could make this, learn, but you kind of need the data to decide, to learn from. And so this could this could be coming from the policyholders, this could be coming from people within the agency. And to be quite honest, we'd love your feedback on where that makes sense. And maybe we can kind of circle back to that after we show you what the submission process looks like. And I think maybe at that point, it's actually the first stage in the submission process. So I think that maybe we'll get to that right now. So let me just go into the book of business here and start a submission. And like Aaron talked about, so the first workflow that we're really tackling is the marketing and submission workflow. So if I go into one of these businesses and let me just talk about this briefly, and then I'll come back to the scores. So this is where it's very kind of CRM-like, and we're working on some features, for example, to pull in marketing history, so you can kind of have all the historical touch points for this account in one place. But we've also got some things we can add the agency information here, especially if they're coming in from another agency. You're taking them. We can add the loss control contact. JasonCole.com. And so just some kind of basic information. Another thing that is kind of interesting here, and this actually came from agency feedback, is the ability to put narrative information in here. And I won't go through all this, but you can kind of see where, and then this has been something that underwriters have really appreciated. And I don't know if this is something that you do, but the ability to kind of go in here and add narrative information, and we have the ability to add custom sections as well. So this is just some information here that goes with each of the accounts. Apparently I have to type this in. I could probably cancel out of this, but this is going to show up through the rest of the process. So I'm just going to go in here and fill this in. Oh, I see. I'll get rid of this one. Okay, so then this is just some basic account information, and this again is pulled out of the agency management system. In this case, Epic. We've also got documents. So the way that this works, we can actually extract this out of the agency management system through the marketing workflow, or we can go ahead and upload documents. Let me see if I have anything here that I can. Let's put in here the IOI logo, and in this case, we'll just say that this is a loss run, even though it's just a logo, but just to kind of show you how it works. So we've got a loss run here, and then what I can do is go into submissions. This account doesn't have any submissions. We just imported it. I'm going to go ahead and start. And this is really kind of the meat of the efficiency savings at the moment. So what you're looking at here is the first page in the submission workflow, and you'll see this complete percentage here. That's actually because we pulled in that information out of the agency management system, and that's a useful thing for underwriters to just see how complete the submission is, kind of a triage mechanism. And we're actually rolling this up into kind of an application strength score that includes not just completeness but a few other factors. But this first element here, we're collecting the policyholders' values, and so you'll notice that these kind of match up one-to-one with the score elements that I just showed you on the other screen. So if they if they need a policy right away, they need a certificate of insurance to do a job, for example, and maybe beyond that they're interested in price, or they really care most about quality. And what we're trying to do here is, number one, match them with the best carrier and avoid wasted work from everybody's perspective. Obviously, if the carrier is not going to win the business, it's not going to do much good to send it to them. If all they care about is price, you're not going to want to send them to an expensive carrier, and vice versa. If they want quality coverage, you're probably not going to send them to a bargain basement carrier. But if we go through here, so this is what ends up making the recommendations, and then ultimately, if we do pass through, just kind of fast tracking these low premium submissions, this is what will route them to the carriers. We've got some basic information here. I think I have to put this in. So, all right.
Jason, I still like that tracker on the top right corner. That's kind of
yeah. So you saw it go up a little bit as I filled in more information. All right. So I'm going to say this is we've got some basic information here as a corporation. Short haul trucking. Number of employees, revenue. And you'll notice here that we have some basic kind of data validation in here as well. I can't put in characters where numbers should be, and this all then is available for reporting, and we're also working on ways of kind of pre-filling this. This wasn't in the agency management system, so we weren't able to pull this out. But let's say they've got 20 years of industry experience. The other thing that's kind of nice about this too is this is actually configurable on the back end, so we can, I'm in they're working on this right now, so hopefully I didn't run into a snag. Let me try this again. There we go. Current agency information, next door agent. We support multiple locations, which is kind of nice. Let's say Chicago, Illinois. Got the producer information. And then which lines of coverage are needed. And one of the things that I kind of breeze past, well, we have both new and renewal workflows in here. And the renewal workflow is kind of an abbreviated version of this that defaults to the current carrier. But let's say I want to add a few more in here. So this, they need cyber liability. Let's see, errors and omissions. I don't know why a trucking company would need that, but let's just do it for giggles. And effective date of the 31st. And then you see this is the stuff that I put in here in the profile, so that carries through. And then I can also include additional documents. So if I had, for example, got the Accord forms and loss runs out of the agency management system, I can include those. I can upload additional documents, but I'm going to go ahead and just include this one, this loss run that's really a logo. And then here's where it's showing the appointed carriers that offer the lines of business that I'm looking at. And I think not all of them offer E&O, so it's not actually making a top recommendation here, but I'm going to pick a few of these. We'll just put these guys in here. And again, this also includes wholesalers. Now I've got the ability to, and I can default this to, if there's only one underwriter, I can default send it to those. But a lot of times what we find is that certain producers or CSRs know which underwriters they want to send this to, so I can send it to one or all of these underwriters. And I'm going to go ahead and continue. And then we get to the review. And this is basically all the information that I put in here, the current account information, the expired premium, the lines of business that we've requested. I can review all this. I can go back and edit it or continue. I can also edit which carriers I'm sending this to. I'm just going to go ahead and submit this. And if all goes well, should see a success message. And this is this is our test site, so it doesn't have quite the horsepower of the production site. But we should see now, go back to the submission screen, and you'll see the submissions that got sent out. And so what happened in the background here, this, because the test site didn't actually send the emails, but this sends an email to each of those underwriters with a link to the submission. It says you've got a new submission from this agency. Here are the lines of business that have been requested. We can also attach the documents, although our hope is that we can remove those going forward and just do everything in here because it's more secure. It's really a win in terms of limiting your cyber liability or cybersecurity liability. So our hope is that we can kind of eliminate the document back and forth through email. But they get a link, and what it's going to do here. So I'm actually just going to open one of these up, and this is what the underwriter then sees. I'm gonna do this so you can kind of see what happens. So the underwriter gets this email, they click on this link, and they see, whoops, let me try this again. There we go. And so they get to this, and we've actually made it so they don't even have to log in. They do get some more goodies if they register. For example, they can see a list of submissions. But I'm just going to go ahead and dismiss that. And you can see here over on the agency side, I've got a notification because actually I can open this up. So CNA opened this account, so I've got a notification here, and I can also see, and we like to call this the pizza tracker, that they've opened it. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And I'm going to open this up as EMC just so you can see kind of what happens on the carrier side and what happens. You see it. We got this is now open, so you can see which carriers are engaging with this and where they're at. Now, as the underwriter, I can see the submission information. I can see the documents. I can see all the current agency information. I can see the lines of coverage, the loss runs, the narrative, all that information that I put into the submission is here. I can respond with a quote, I can decline. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to actually send a message saying, how old is their fleet? Let's say, submit that. And now you see this goes to engage. So when the underwriter does something with the submission, and you should be able to see the message pop up here, it changes the status to engage. So you can see that they did something. So when they download documents, for example, it does the same thing. I can respond right here. And this is actually a big win because this is completely secure. So all the interaction that happens here between the agency and the carrier is completely secure. We can also export this both on the agency and the carrier side, so they have a complete record of all of the interactions, which is kind of nice. I'm going to go ahead and close this one, and I'm going to do a declination here. So we'll go in here as West Bend. And dismiss this. You see the West Bend opened it, and I'm just going to go ahead and decline this one. And we also, this is kind of neat because one of the things that we're able to do then over time is track the number of declinations. You can kind of see that over here on the left-hand side. So when something reaches 3 declinations, we can actually pop an alert saying this is eligible for E&S now, and potentially even give the CSR, the producer, the ability to kind of automatically submit that to an E&S broker. But I'm just going to say this is not an industry we're interested in. Alright, so I've got a decline here, and you can see the declination here over on the left-hand side. Now I'm going to go in here as Western National and actually do a quote. Oops, I might need to close that one down. Give me a second. So now I've opened up this submission as Western National. So I'm going to dismiss this. So you can see I've opened it, interesting account. So you can see that, and we'll just kind of engage with this. Should see that update here any second. But I'm going to go ahead and go and respond with a quote. So I go here to the submission response that I received engaged. So the way that this works, this is kind of an interesting screen here. So I'm going to maximize this just to show you a little bit more, get a little more screen real estate. So again, this is the underwriter responding with a quote. So I'm gonna not quote the errors and omissions insurance. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna make a package here out of BOP, the motor truck cargo and general liability. I'm gonna put those all in a package, and I'm also gonna make motor truck cargo optional. And what this does is it makes you'll see this in the back end, but it provides the underwriter the ability to kind of construct a package, show what's optional, what's not. I'm also going to throw in here cyber liability. I guess I should put some premiums in here too. I'm just going to match what's there for cyber liability. I'm going to put in 5,000, sure. 21,000, and motor truck I'll do 3,000. I can add an additional line of coverage which can go out to the let's just do crime. We'll add crime coverage here for 500 as an optional coverage as well. So I'm kind of constructing a quote with the different coverages that I offer as a carrier. And one of the interesting things here too, so I go in here to like general liability, I can expand this, and let's just say I don't know what's a good carrier for business. I think CNA has some kind of interesting. So as an underwriter, I can start to put more detail in here. I can also attach an individual quote, but let me just see if they have anything. These carriers need to get their act together and give me something a little bit more fun to work with. But,
yeah, you can't find anything good to pop in usually.
I know. Well, that just speaks to how. All right, let's try this one. See if there's anything. Okay, we'll just see if I can pull this out. I don't know if it'll work or not, but so what it gives them the ability to do is put in some more product information. No, that didn't work. Well, we'll just hide the details on this one. Boy, guys, we got to find a good carrier here that is a small commercial that just has some decent collateral. So they could either put in, the product information itself, or what we're really kind of interested in here is digital collateral that the producer can use. Wow, even Chubb's not great. All right, let's just say I want to do coverage highlights for Chubb, even though this is Western National. I'm just going to do this. So we'll take general liability, I think is what I did. So let's just pretend that this is our, the kind of the product details for the business auto. So I'm going to go ahead and send this to the agent. And I can also put in additional instructions around coverage, binding requirements, for example. I'm going to pop this over here. And you'll see here Western National now has quoted the account. And these are the different lines of business that it quoted. Aaron, there's your hover that you were asking about earlier. But these are the lines of business that were requested, and these are the ones that were quoted. So you can see that they did not include errors and omissions. So if multiple carriers send a submission, send a quote, you can see who has quoted which lines of business. And ultimately, where we want to go with this, we actually had a feature that we ended up delaying, but called a coverage bundler, where you can start to do things like combine lines of business and coverages from multiple carriers. So if you have a monoline work comp carrier, for example, you can include the work comp from that carrier, and then general liability from another. So I'm going to go in here and I can see the quote. And let me actually expand this. So I'm back in the back in agent land here, and so this is the quote details. I've got some supplied documents, and I can view the details of this. And this is really the beginning of our proposal tool. So you can see here these are the stuff that I tried to copy and paste in here from the carrier's website. It didn't turn out exactly. It's much more impressive if I can actually get to see some images and videos and things. Which again, if I'm a producer using this to not only understand what the carrier is offering, but help sell this to the customer, that's kind of a neat thing. And then I can also link out to some of this information. But I'm going to go ahead and bind this. So as an agent, I can decline this as well and give a reason back to the carrier, but I'm just going to go ahead and bind this so we can tie this one off. I've got some issuance instructions here that I can provide, but here's where you can see the other side. If you recall, when I kind of constructed this package as an underwriter, so these were the lines that come with in the package, and then motor truck cargo was part of the package, but so I have the option of including that or not, and then I also have this optional crime coverage that I can include. So I'm just going to go ahead and, why is this not letting me? Let me try that, just binding this as is, and so now it's bound. So now this is the, kind of the complete picture of where this submission is. And then, just from the underwriter side, some of the things they appreciate, we're adding a flag. So when you bind a policy, you can alert all the other underwriters that this submission is now off the market so they don't spend time writing it, for example. But that is, and that should then be reflected in my dashboard. If I look at the dashboard, the activity that I just did gets updated there. That is a very high level overview. Obviously, there's more here. We didn't even get into some of this stuff up here, but we've really been focused on this marketing and renewal workflows, and so this is kind of a brief introduction to that. So with that, I will turn it back over to Aaron and Brad.
And maybe what we want to talk a little bit about is the tenant count kind of program. And Brian, do you want to jump in and maybe give a little bit of background there?